Do you think this is the toughest era to be a superstar athlete? Kind of to both y'all, especially on the mental aspect.
As a fan, I can talk about it as a fan.
Yeah, you wouldn't think just having that constant feedback and knowing what to shut off and all that type of stuff. It's like you kind of were at the advent of that, but now it's part of the game. You come in to the league
behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You think it's tougher?
I do think I think this is a tough era anyway. Like, I just think we deal with new everything, new technology, new resources, access, new style and type of players, new mindsets, new athlete mindsets. Like, it's different what we watching and what we actually are dealing with out there today. It's tougher in the sense of there's so much, but it's so many people, so many comments, so many opinions, so many perspectives, and it's like, if you're trying to navigate in the world of that's chaos, that's a lot of chaos. If you're trying to navigate in that world of chaos, you're gonna get lost up in that chaos, right? And then you're gonna start being chaotic and doing chaotic shit and start saying chaotic shit. And so you're gonna be swallowed up into that whole pot of chaos.
On the flip side of it though, right? Like, I unfortunately went to the McDonald's All-American game last couple of weeks back, and a lot of the players that we see that are, the high-ranked players, like they already kind of feel like professionals, right? Yeah. Like they dealing with agents, they're dealing with media, they have all this money. Like, I think the Boozer Twins had like a charity already that they were donating a lot of their, winnings to and stuff like that. Just stuff that I didn't think 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds were dealing with as far as like a spotlight is concerned. So in addition to that, like, to carry all that as a teenager mentally, like how do you see it just from the outside looking in, and for the athletes you talk to, how does that sort of change the way athletes develop mentally and not just physically?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is if you think about it, back in the day, it would be you, your opponents, and then the fans in the crowd.
Right.
You got the people in the stadium. And then maybe you got a couple of TV interviews afterwards.
You got a beat writer you got to see or something.
Yeah,
like
and you got a couple of people like in the, post-game analysis, shooting their shot or whatever. And it's like, now you've got all of that plus social media, plus anonymous kid 3629 at home saying his piece or her piece or whatever it may be. And you've got millions of those, right? And what the brain's bad at doing is giving value. So the brain's good at overvaluing someone who has very little information on the game and undervaluing someone like your coach or your colleague or someone who actually has lots of insight on the game. The brain kind of doesn't tell the difference. And so I think the brain reads that comment. I remember I was with a musician and they just got off stage headlining, 100,000 people, and they were looking through on Twitter at the time, and it was all these amazing tweets. And then they'd find the one that said that their outfit didn't look perfect or whatever it was. And we're not good at that. And that's how the brain's been trained. The brain's been trained to spot fear, to protect us, and to make sure that there's not a snake in the grass or there's not a lion, right? That works when there's a lion or there's a snake, but it doesn't work when it's anonymous 36792 that's leaving a comment and you're overvaluing it. So I think it is definitely the hardest era to be a public figure, let alone be an athlete, because you're then playing like 3 times a week, 4 times a week. Yeah. So now you've got opinions multiplied by that.
Right.
And what I've seen the best doing is the ability to remind yourself that it is just you, the ball, and the opponent. And so the best have the ability to remind themselves that actually the game is played here. The game isn't over here. And when you look at the athletes who've been able to succeed in this era, it's people who go, yeah, this is the game, this is not the game. And when I think about people that I've spoken to, I remember speaking to a soccer player, and I remember asking him his morning routine before a big game. And he didn't have a morning routine. He just did what he did.
Yeah.
And then when you see where his career went, it didn't last as long as all the players that have a dialed in morning routine before a big game. Because I find that when you don't have the foundation that gets you ready, now all of that stuff starts to play in. So if everyone's screaming your name, you feel great. And then if everyone's shouting your name negatively, it affects you as well. Right. Whereas if you have your core lock-in of like, I do this, then I do this, then I do this. All of a sudden, there's no noise because your space is protected. So I think for me, the mindset right now is how much are you able to zone into what's important to you? What are the steps you're going to take to do that? And if you have that, then you're not even living for the praise either. And I think that's the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is you buy into your own hype when you're winning, and then it hurts you more when you're losing.
Mm.
And the point is to not buy into the hype or to buy into the critique.
Yeah.
Because the point was to just do your thing and play the game. So I think the more we can help people disconnect and build their own morning routines, build their own post-game routines. Like post-game, if you're going on social media, it's never going to be good for you.
No.
Like you can't control your mind if you've got 1 million people telling you suck.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we're not playing the right game. We're playing the wrong game.